G'day everyone, welcome to this edition of the F1 Armchair Experts podcast for the Miami Grand Prix. Some of the drivers certainly felt the heat. I'm Durko, your host, and I'm joined by my co-host Big T in Ireland. So, Tone, hit the music, so pull up a pew, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Let's do it.
So, Big T, the first thing I want to talk about is the Miami Autodrome, as they've labelled it, which is just a glorified name for a car park. The circuit itself, obviously being a street circuit, I'm not a fan of them, as I keep repeating just about every podcast we do. But for me, I couldn't see much value in this circuit. I couldn't see the challenge in it. I mean, it's got a, Korean Baku style, really long back straight, which for me doesn't do anything. But I sort of looked at the circuit almost like an IndyCar circuit. Now, I'm not trying to discredit IndyCar racing in any way, but for me it was just like they got one of the IndyCar circuits that they use throughout America and just said, righto, plant it in Miami and let the F1 cars go loose. So for me, I'm not a fan of the circuit. I think if America wants more races, they can go to, accredited circuits or get another circuit up to accreditation instead of spending hundreds of millions of dollars just purpose building a car park to go around the Miami Dolphins Stadium. I couldn't see the challenge in it. Sure, there's some fast corners, but it just doesn't offer anything like, dedicated circuits do in. And I'm not saying this for just European rounds, but other rounds anywhere in the world where they've got a dedicated circuit. For me, the Miami Autodrome is a failure.
I think I when I was messaging you the other day, we were talking. I was saying that I got the feel like this was a bit like the Valencia circuit, and I don't know if people remember the Valencia circuit. It was labelled as the European Grand Prix back a few years ago. It had that kind of, the palm trees, the kind of the twisty section, the long straight, with very narrow walls. It reminded me of the Valencia circuit. I heard, I was listening to George Russell after the race, and he was saying that, it had the potential to be a very, very good circuit if it wasn't for that very tight chicane in the middle of it there where they go under the bridge. And he said that just ruined the whole experience of the track. And I think another couple of drivers kind of agreed, and I kind of mentioned similar comments along those lines. Yeah, it wasn't what I was expecting. I was expecting something better. The racing wasn't great. It was okay. We got a couple of DRS overtakes. We got our safety car, which kind of brought the pack back together. There was some good battles, but the circuit itself was it was only okay. I wouldn't say it was bad. I wouldn't say it was amazing. It's kind of in the middle. I'm just kind of I'm thinking it's okay. The track surface itself created a few problems as well. It kind of had the feeling that the whole thing was just thrown together like last minute by a bunch of teenagers. That's and no disrespect to any teenagers out there, but I've got teenagers in the house myself, but like there was just a kind of a lackluster. It was like they thought they'd spent so much time and money and effort on everything else, but had forgotten about the main thing. And when you don't make the main thing. This is what happens, and for us die-hard F1 fans, or the true F1 fans, it wasn't much to really get the juices flowing, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I agree with your thoughts here on it being like Valencia. It's like a love child of Monaco and Valencia, because the walls were just unforgiving, as a few of the drivers found out. Especially Ocon, when he absolutely clobbered his Alpine into the wall and cracked the chassis. So Yeah, for me, yeah, as I said, it's a no from me for the Miami Autodrome. Yeah, they've got a 10-year contract, so we've got another 9 races to get through before we can move
that's
on
gonna
to
be
somewhere else.
That's going to be painful. They're going to have to do something with the track. They're going to have to look at it, make changes like they did with Saudi Arabia. After last year, they very quickly made a few changes. They improved the track, but they're going to have to make that tight, twisty section a little bit faster. I don't know the reason for it. I don't know the reason they put that in. Maybe it was just to. Wasn't this track designed by Herman Tilke's son, or was it Carlton Tilke?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, it's that same fucking thing again, isn't it? Like the Tilke type track of just. I don't know what they're at. I think they need to retire at this stage, and they need to get somebody else in to do the tracks. Outside of the tracks, though, Durko, right? Outside of the track itself, the circuit, which there isn't really much to talk about. What was your opinion about the whole, the fanfare, the ticket prices, the marketing that was put in around it? Because I'm going to come to some comments that I've picked up across the interweb there in a second, but what was your opinion on that side of things?
I think, and I've been criticised pretty heavily on social media for my comments, but I think it was a bit of a gimmick. Like they had that fake marina, and
who would dare criticise you? Who would dare criticise the president?
Well, I can name one person, but anyway, I think it was just a gimmick. I think the thing at the end that was cheesy, the police escort and the NFL helmets. I suppose they've done it before with big hats in Texas. I suppose they're just going with the theme of the area, but I think the police escort didn't really achieve much. I mean, yeah, sure, go with the NFL helmets because it's Miami Dolphins Stadium they're racing around, but I think the police escort was a joke, and the fake marina just ticked it for me as just stupid.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, you got to look at the ticket prices. I mean, a general admission ticket was $1,200 US, and there were some tickets went up to, depends where your box was up to 80,000. So I mean, it's just Liberty have turned F1 into a business. No, it's no longer a sport. It's just a business to make money.
Yeah,
which is well, that's right. It's just a shame that it has become just a business. It's gone away from its grassroots of being a sport where you get ready on Saturday and you race Sunday. That's for me. It's I don't know. I'm going to be criticised for saying this, but I think F1's sort of lost its heart and soul.
I'll just pick up on a few comments there. I'll just quickly brush across these just for content purposes. There was a post in the group from Martin our good friend Martin. I actually didn't realise it was him that posted it, but hello Martin, if you're listening. I know you're not a big fan of me, but look, here we go anyway. So he posted he put up a post. He said, "American fans and enthusiasm always work for me. They seem to know how to enjoy themselves more than most. Have a nice day from London, England." That's Martin for you. But just what one key comment that got a lot of reactions to was from Danny Spirea, Spirea. I don't know how you pronounce that, Spirea. "I'm an American, and when Americans join anything enthusiastically, they always bring the collective IQ and nuance of the discussion down several orders in the magnitude. Just what we need now is Americans, rednecks, and American sports fans and angry white inbreds to join F1 fandom and turn this sport into NASCAR, but with rich people and ignorant fans. The great thing about F1 was the fan was always educated and more nuanced than the average sports meathead. This might be a win for the bottom line, but a loss for the soul of the sport." And I think that's kind of like what you were alluding to there.
That's got to be my comment of the week. Full credit to Danny there. I've got
Yeah,
to agree
absolutely.
with him 100%. He's nailed it.
Yeah, yeah. They've taken this NASCAR way of kind of promoting the sport. It just doesn't work for F1. It doesn't work for me anyway. I'm not saying maybe people are entitled to their opinion. I'll still continue to watch F1 regardless. But Adam Cooper was on Reddit. It was actually on Twitter, actually, but I just picked this up on Reddit. And he was saying, let me see, what was it now? A lot of good things about Miami, but teams and sponsors are not happy with the quality of the service in the Paddock Club, run locally rather than by the usual F1 organization. Tickets are $13,000, so people expect 5 stars. First world problems, I know, but lessons to be learned. And then a few hours later, he came back and he said, if anything, I underplayed that comment. Some senior marketing people have told him that it was an absolute, and in quotes, shit show, and that wealthy F1 newcomers / potential sponsors will not be coming back after a bad first experience. Somebody else commented then that he said this in another thread, but in his section, which was Turn 18 Grandstand, someone fucked up on the row stickers and everyone was sitting in the wrong seat. There were supposed to be 30 rows, but they were labelled up to 29. Some people that had paid $1,500 for a ticket for these seats had to sit on the concrete stairs because the staff couldn't figure it out either.
But they're going to say, it's the first time, nothing goes smooth on your first run.
But there was people that had paid $20,000 for a ticket and they couldn't even see the racing from where they were seated. From where they were seated, they couldn't see the racing. They couldn't see it. There was people who had paid. I'll actually find a comment here in a minute.
While you're looking for that, I'll tell you, in defence of American races, if you go to Coda, no matter where you're standing, you can see the circuit. It is unreal. They got it right. But it's a purpose-built circuit.
One last comment here that I'll just read out. The Ringers F1 podcast aptly summed it up as too many people unaccustomed to not being the most rich, the most famous, or the most important person in the room all in one place. That pretty much, I suppose, puts a cap on it. They just went too far, too deep, and had too much of a bigger emphasis on attracting celebrities and making it all, overly priced. I think I read somewhere that one of the issues they had was to get this Miami track, this Miami race over the line, excuse the pun, to make it a race, that a lot of the local businesses kicked up a stink and they wanted to be part of it, that they felt that they were getting left out of it. And that was the agreement, that it was the local businesses that were going to be providing food, drinks, and entertainment and whatever. And I think it just they just weren't able to cope. And they definitely over-marketed the whole thing, made it too much of a celebrity fucking buzzfest. I don't know. That needs to change for next year anyway.
So I'm going to ask you a question. Well, I'm going to make a comment, which is going to sound bizarre, but I want you to answer it once I've made the comment with a yes or no answer only. I believe that Drive to Survive has potentially ruined F1. Do you agree?
Do I agree? Oh, that's a tough one.
Because I think the show that Drive to Survive has put on has completely changed in some way the way F1 is now seen, and it's opened the market to fans. Yes, it's shown the politics behind the in the garage and in the paddock and wherever, in the motorhome, it's shown all that stuff, but there's something about it that it's brought in a completely different sort of fan that never knew the history of the sport. And I think to go with the Drive to Survive fan club, so to speak, they've had to remarket the sport, and in some ways it has ruined it.
Our good friends over at Beyond the Racing Line podcast, who I know you were acquainted with, I know they've interviewed you before. I circled it and sent it to you in a WhatsApp earlier, and for any of our listeners who don't know or not sure who they are, just go and search out the Beyond the Racing Line podcast on Spotify. But they called their Miami edition of the podcast the Netflix GP. I cracked up laughing the moment I saw it. The Netflix GP. It really. I was thinking and we didn't record this podcast straight after the race. Obviously, there was just we were tired. I think you'd fell asleep, and it just wasn't, the timing of it wasn't right. And I think I kind of wanted to sit back and wait and see what the reaction was like on the internet before I suppose I made my comments, because I was a little bit on the fence. I'm still on the fence, but the Netflix Grand Prix, I was kind of thinking of a name for our podcast. What could we call it? Something quirky, something funny, something that would, kind of get people to click and listen to the podcast. And I honestly couldn't think of anything. And then I saw that today from the boys over in Beyond the Racing Line podcast, and I said, that's it. That's the name I was looking for. The Netflix Grand Prix. Like fuck, it sums it up, doesn't it?
Full credit to Roger and the boys.
Fair play to you, Roger Byron. Yeah, look him up in the group if anyone's listening. Take a listen. They know what they're doing. Another part of this whole thing. So we talked about the circuit, the lackluster circuit. We've talked about the over marketing, the fanfare, and the overpriced tickets. And I suppose linking the two of those things together was Martin Brundle's grid walk. Fuck, like, if ever there was a time I wanted to turn off the TV before a race, that was it. That was, I don't know if you were up in time, if you saw it. Did you see the whole lot of it?
I did, and I felt embarrassed for Martin, because, I usually enjoy a good grid walk, but, I, again, get criticised for saying that these celebrities who get their name from an IKEA catalogue, should not be on the grid.
No, they shouldn't be.
They're just clogging up the space. The teams are trying to get the car ready. Martin should be there going through the technical stuff, talking to the drivers, talking to the TPs, the engineers, whoever he can get hold of. Not talking to somebody who's, been a celebrity for 5 minutes and knows absolutely zero about F1.
I mean, and they all come out with they spew the same answer. Anytime he asks them a question, it's a great event. I'm so happy to be here in Miami. This is the, we've been waiting a long time for this, and this is great, and it's great to be here, and I'm a big fan. And then he asks them a question about, so are you supporting Ferrari today? Are you standing over the boys with Mercedes? Are you backing McLaren? I love F1 in general. These guys have never watched F1 in their fucking lives. Don't give me. Do you think Serena Williams has ever sat down and watched fucking Spa or Hockenheim, or has thrown her fucking coffee at the TV, when fucking Max and Hamilton crashed into each other in Monza last year? Does she even know where fucking Monza is? Does she even know who Max Verstappen is? It's like, it's such a shame, like you said, that they clog up the grid with all that shite. And it is shite. That's all it is.
I think the example for me was Martin went up to one bloke who nobody had any idea who he was, and Martin said, "And who are you?" And he was just that off his head on Colombian dancing powder. He just said, I'm big on social media. And Martin said, "Yeah, but who are you?" And he goes, this bloke didn't know where he was. No. And he's standing on the grid. I mean,
they should not be putting anybody on the grid that doesn't know the ethic of what that grid walk is about, and what, like, when Martin does the grid walk, I want him talking to drivers, to team bosses, to mechanics, to maybe. I've seen some really good grid walks where he's collared old, ex-F1 drivers that are just there. I remember him talking to Alan Prost when Prost was over the Renault team, and you get good, honest, a good, honest answer from these lads about it. Isn't just the it's just fucking pointless chit chat. What happened there on Sunday. And like you said, I felt the same way. I was genuinely embarrassed, not just for Martin Brundle. I was genuinely embarrassed for F1 because that went out across the world on the global fucking stream to everybody's houses, pubs, clubs, wherever people were watching F1. That was genuinely embarrassing. And I don't think Martin really had a choice. I think given the choice, I wouldn't have said that he would have. I think if he'd had an option on who he was able to interview, he wouldn't have gone after half of those people. But because they're celebrities, because maybe I'm just getting old, maybe I'm just turning into a grumpy old turd, and I don't know who half of these fucking rappers and we know who Serena and Venus Williams is, but like. Outside of that, Ian Poulter, he's a good golfer. He's a sport guy. He was there with his young son. That was genuine, That was genuine. And those guys I don't mind because they're sportsmen themselves. But the rest of it was just complete dog shit for me. I'm sorry, it was embarrassing. And
well, I had to take a double take when he found John Alesi and he was talking to him. I thought, hang on, he's actually talking to somebody who should be on the grid.
That was it. That was it. Like, that was the only interview that I did. Even until you said it, I'd forgotten about it. But we need more of that. We need more of that. Not this. Not celebrities. And I have nothing against celebrities.
No.
They play their part in the world, but they're being muled. They're being fucking used to. What F1 are trying to do is piggyback their Instagram feeds. They're trying to piggyback their TikTok accounts. Yeah. Fuck it. There's all kinds of strange things, strange people and celebrities that were at that race that had no fucking business being there. No business being there at all, other than the fact that they were being used and abused for their social media presence. And that's how F1 now see the sport. They're making a mockery of it, to be honest. I think somebody needs to fucking rein somebody in over that. For me, it was unacceptable. And that side of it, I know we started out talking about the circuit, the racing and all that kind of thing, but the whole other side of it was completely unnecessary. Absolutely unnecessary. It didn't add anything to the spectacle at all for me.
100% agree with you, Tony, but it was it was a good lead-in for what was a spectacle, being the grid walk into the actual race itself, which was a complete non-spectacle. It was a non-event. I fell asleep for about 10 laps, woke up with a sore neck and went, oh, shit, nothing's happened. It's still the same.
Glad you said neck.
I fell asleep in my favourite chair and head went to one side, so I woke up with a stiff neck.
It's when you wake up with
that race.
It's when you wake up with a sore arse. That's when you have to fucking really worry. And the bottle of Jack Daniels is empty beside you. That's how you know you've had a good night.
So the race itself, for me, was just a complete non-event. As I said, talking about the circuit itself, there's limited overtaking opportunities on that circuit. Daniel Ricciardo pulled off. I don't want to dwell on him as a topic. That's a whole other podcast in itself. He made a great dive on the brakes into the corner.
He was back. He was back for a split second. We were like, "Fuck, he's back! He's back! This is it. This is the Ricciardo we want." And then it just fizzled away and disappeared again.
He found his groove there for about 3 laps, and then it fizzled out.
It was a short groove. Fuck.
Yeah. But for me, that race, I got about halfway through it when I woke up, and I thought, why don't they just start again? Do a reverse grid. If it's going to be this boring, there's no challenge in it. One thing I do want to talk about, I did notice while I managed to stay awake, was the lack of porpoising by the Ferraris coming down that back straight. Now, I don't know if you noticed it, but the Ferrari was just absolutely dead flat on the ground and didn't move. When Verstappen was chasing Leclerc or Sainz was chasing Perez or whatever, the Ferrari was just dead flat. There's absolutely no movement at all. But you could see the Red Bull was porpoising coming down that back straight. So whatever setup Ferrari had, whatever they've done with their suspension setup, it is just spot on. They've got it right. So that was about the most interesting thing in the race for me, was watching the Ferraris not porpoising.
Yeah.
Other than that,
We could also...
we're coming together. I mean, Norris made a stupid mistake, trying to get around Gasly, but Gasly had his own issues from when Alonso gave him a love tap. But I don't know what Norris was thinking.
Would you clearly put the blame with Norris? Would you think...
100%. 100%.
I was more of a kind of a... I was putting it down to 50-50. I think it was a bit of both, you've got a slow car on the track that's gone off the track. Actually, that's something we'll talk about, because I think that's kind of what led to that accident. Crash, fuck up, whatever you want to call it. And it was something that I was listening to the F1 Nation podcast with Tom Clarkson there this morning. And one of the first heads that popped up on it was Adrian Newey, and he was talking about... Did you get a chance to listen to it at all today? Yeah.
No, I didn't.
So one of the things he was talking about was the tarmac. The biggest challenge the teams had, it wasn't the circuit, it was the tarmac. The tarmac, they'd used a granite... what did he call it? A granite substrate in the compound of the tarmac, and it was horrible. It was just, if you were, I think George Russell had described it after the race as it was the same as driving when a wet track is drying out and you have the dry line. That's what racing in Miami was like, because if you went off the racing line at all, you were nowhere. You saw Bottas there near, I think it was last lap or maybe the second to last lap or something like that, and he was in P5 and he lost it to the two Mercs, and that's because he had gone slightly offline. And the reason he'd gone offline was because he couldn't get the tyres up to temperature. The reason he couldn't get the tyres up to temperature was to do with the tarmac. And I think Gasly had a kind of a similar problem, and then he'd gone off track, and then he had struggled to find grip, and then he couldn't get back onto the track, and when he came onto the track, he collided with Norris. And if you're in Norris's position, you're racing, you're coming around a corner and you see a slow moving car on the track. Of course, you're just going to try and pass him. You're doing a couple of 100 kilometers an hour. You don't really have time to plan it all out. You just have to think quick. And I don't think I'd lay it all on Norris's head. I think Gasly had played a part in it as well. And it was a shame as well, because McLaren had a reasonable weekend. They kind of fell apart during the race, but they're up and down. I think a lot of teams like Aston Martin were nowhere previous races, and all of a sudden they were racing from the pit lane and managed to score points. So yeah, bit of a fucking head scratcher in all honesty. But that tarmac played a huge part. The tarmac and the tyre temps played a huge part in how that whole race finished. And if it wasn't for the safety car,
because it was
if it
interesting.
wasn't for the safety car, it would have been a complete snorefest altogether.
Well, it was interesting that they were resurfacing parts of the circuit between sessions, just to fix up patches which had been torn up.
It was falling apart. It was literally falling apart after free practice. And again, and it comes back to the organisation of the whole thing. Like, this is a multi-billion-dollar business. They've got the best experts at their disposal, and they go down and they put the cheapest shittiest tarmac. Like, who the fuck was in charge of that? Whoever was in charge of putting that tarmac down should be fired. Send him over here to me to Ireland. I'll fucking give him a good talking to. Fuck's sake.
They'd almost go back and say you breached your contract and failing to supply a decent product because it clearly failed.
There's a good chance that might happen. There is definitely, like, if there's, for whoever the contractor was that was looking after that tarmac should be made fucking pay all the money back and come and resurface the whole fucking thing for free next year, with a far better product. Like, whatever that granite shit that Adrian Newey was referring to, it's like something that they fucking stick on the back roads out here where I live in Ireland. And look, if you don't know, I live out in the middle of fucking nowhere. I live between a forest and a hill. My nearest neighbour's a kilometre away, and the roads that we have out around here are only fucking wide enough for what is it, a tuk-tuk? Or, anyway, you're barely, these are rally roads that I live on. They're rally roads. And the fucking tarmac that they did, you can't even call it tarmac. They come along with a truck, right? This is how they put the Miami circuit together, right? They got one of those big yellow trucks that I have here, and if anybody's listening here in Ireland, you know exactly the fucking thing I'm talking about. It's a big Mercedes truck, and it's got a big robot arm on the front of it. And he comes along, right, every 2 years, something like that. And what do? They spray this black tarmac, right, at the front, and as it's driving along, then it's spraying stones out of the back of it. And you'd even have a couple of council lads there that are fucking semi-retired, and Jesus, even getting them to work an hour a day would be too much for them. Smoking the fag and one hand up on the shovel, and they'd be coming along and just whacking the holes with a shovel, trying to pack it all down and make it smooth. That's how they fucking surface the Miami Grand Prix. I'm telling you, we should send the Irish. Do you know what we're going to do? I'm gonna put a post up in the group sometime soon. I'm gonna ask that we send the Irish tarmacers over to Miami to fix that circuit, because it was just, again, we're talking about embarrassment. That's it's unforgivable. It is like in a sport where the racetrack is the fundamental part of the whole thing. Was like, yeah, we'll just throw any old thing down and we'll see what happens. It's a joke, absolute joke. Sorry, I'm ranting.
That's Tony's spray of the day, folks. There you go.
There you go.
Now, you realise, Tony, those trucks have a name. They're actually called jet patches.
Well, there you go. There you go.
Now, one thing I want to close on is
no.
stuff.
Do you know what we're going to close on? You remember last podcast? For anyone listening, okay, in the last podcast, I threw out a thing of this Ask Me Anything scenario where people would send me questions to ask you. Well, that's what we're going to close on, because I've been sent a few questions. I'm going to pull them up.
Okay. I just want to mention the Aston Martin team and how they made the rookie error of refrigerating their fuel for too long, because they had to start from the pit lane.
That's what the fuck.
It was a bit of a joke on their part that the fuel was too cold, and obviously based on high school physics, it was too much weight in it, which would have cost them a greater penalty. So yeah, I don't know how they got that wrong. Especially, I've been to Miami and it's never cold. So,
but we've raced in Singapore, we've raced in Malaysia, we've raced in hotter countries than Miami. Like, how the fuck did they get this wrong? Clearly, somebody.
I don't know.
Clearly, somebody in the fueling department needs to buy them a thermometer. I think Aston Martin did well, though, considering they started from the pit lane after all that fiasco at the start with the like you said, with the fuel and the temperature. To start from the pit lane, and I think Lance Stroll, after Alonso had his penalties handed out to him after the race, I think Stroll ended up getting 10th place, I think. So
yeah, well, Alonso got taken out of the points.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I mean, credit to Albon, he got another 2 points for Williams.
Alonso out of the points.
You
I'm
happy
happy
with that?
Very happy. Do you want? Will I ask? Have we
You
anything
come,
else
dude.
racing to talk about? Because to be honest, like we could. Even Ashley said it to me today in a message. He was just fucking sick to death of the social media around this Miami Grand Prix and what a shit show it was. Have we anything else?
Yep, I'm over it.
Oh, yeah, I'm over it as well. I'm gonna. Do you know what? I'm gonna ask you a few questions. Right? These are the ask me anything questions.
Okay.
Right? So these were sent directly to me, albeit all by the same person. But yeah, it will. Let's see what comes out of it. You have to answer honestly, and if there's a backstory to any of these questions, you have to cough up and spill the beans. Right?
Do I have to guess who sent the questions?
No, but you'll know as soon as I ask them. Okay.
Okay.
How many stomachs does a cow have?
I know who sent this in. The answer is 4.
Why 4?
I don't know. It's just part of the way the stomach works.
Okay. Next question.
Tom Lightbody, I'm going to murder you.
Tom, you're in a lot of fucking trouble, man.
You're in trouble.
How much does a Brahman cow weigh?
A Brahman cow weighs 750 kilos. Next question.
Name any 2 dairy cows in Australia.
Australian red and a Jersey.
It's funny that you've answered them now.
Or a Frisian.
It's funny that you've answered them now. What's the backstory? Why? Because I tell you what he said. He says, "Hi Tony." He says, "I like the F1 podcast. You're doing a great job with Durko. I work with Durko, and without revealing what he does, can you ask him in the next podcast if you do those questions to Durko, how many stomachs a cow has?" He and another bloke who works with us, both of whom are well regarded in their rural knowledge, got the questions wrong, and it was a funny loss of pride for them. Left field from F1, but you'll get a good reaction. Cheers, keep up the good work. And he sent me that on the 26th, and then on the 3rd of May, he messaged me again. He said, "Can you also ask Durko 2 more cow questions that he got wrong today? Ha ha ha. How much does a Brahman cow weigh? And name 2 dairy cows in Australia. Calls himself a rural investigator. Ha ha ha." That's Tom.
You're not funny, Tom.
Fair play to you, Tom. Keep the questions coming. I think we'll do a Tom slot every episode.
But can we make them F1 related, not criticise me and my lack of knowledge about work stuff?
Bit of fall from grace for you there, yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Tom, again.
Right, I think that wraps it up. Yeah, Miami can go fuck itself, and yeah, that brings to the end another riveting podcast. Where I'm going to apologise for anyone listening that this wasn't. There was just literally fucking nothing to talk about. There was only things to give out about, and yeah. Where are we off to next? What's the next race? Is Spain, isn't it? Barcelona.
Yep. Espanol.
So we're back to the circuit where they did their first test. Do you think Mercedes are gonna? Oh, here we go again. Mercedes question. I can hear everybody's brains. Do you think Mercedes are gonna revert back to that setup that they had, that concept that they had in the Barcelona test?
Yes. And I'm also going to be interested to see what happens if Sainz is, say, 1 and 2 with Leclerc. Are they going to let Sainz get his maiden win at home in the Ferrari? Are they going to use team orders?
I think Ferrari
Leclerc's.
I think Ferrari definitely have to kind of very soon. They're going to have to make a decision on which driver they're going to back for the drivers' championship. It's looking like Leclerc at the moment. Sainz hasn't had a very good start to this season. He was able to defend Perez off all right in the Miami race, but yeah, I mean, if you look at the points table at the moment, there's a bit of a battle going on further down between, I think it's Lewis Hamilton, Norris, and Bottas. I might have that wrong. I don't recall 100%, but I think it's something like that. They're all in around the 30-point mark. So there's a bit of a battle going on there. But 1-2 for Ferrari. I don't know. The Red Bulls in Barcelona are going to be fast. That's a long straight. That's where they've got that end of straight speed with the DRS. Their DRS is. In saying that though, Ferrari fought back with engine modes there after the safety car start in Miami. So yeah, it's level pegging, but it'll be interesting to see now going back to the European races when the temperatures come down and we're back to kind of a more known track where we have lots and lots and lots of data gathered. Even despite the new regs, like we still have, we know the tarmac there. It's not granite anyway, so we should be good for a bit of racing.
Well, I'm going to go with Ferrari, and you're going to go with Red Bull because Max has won every race that he's won every race that he's finished this season. So
Yep.
It's a red car for me. It's a Red Bull car for you, and that's it. Overall, Miami Grand Prix. It's a thumbs down for me.
Yeah, it's a thumbs down for me as well for the Miami Grand Prix. Looking forward to Barcelona. Looking forward to get back to proper racetracks, as you said. And yeah, I think that kind of sums it up, doesn't it? Do you want to sign off?
Yep. I'll just say thanks everyone for listening, and we'll be back with a Spanish Grand Prix edition of the F1 Armchair Experts podcast. Thank you again, Big T, my co-host in Ireland, for your input. And until next time, bye-bye.
See you later, lads. Unless I have more questions from Tom, then I might actually do a separate episode. But if that doesn't happen, then yeah, we'll see you after Barcelona.
No, I've finished the podcast. We can't have any more questions from Tom. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.